lead at GDGGTVIT, and with me I have Yana. Yana.
Hello everyone, I'm Yana Malhotra and I'm app dev member of GDG Society. Should I start the session now?
Yeah, so
And
let me just first tell
yes,
why we are all here and what are we going to cover in this session. So this session is going to be about building Android and iOS apps with Flutter. Flutter is used for building other platforms as well, and we will see that. But today we will be focusing mainly on Android and iOS, and we will basically cover everything, how Flutter works internally, what are the widgets, various widgets, and later in the session we will also have a real project demo as well. So I guess now if you are all ready, and if you get any doubts, feel free to ask in the chat box or directly. So now I guess we will start with the session. So Yana, on to you.
okay. So hello guys. So today we're gonna start the session about building Android and iOS apps with Flutter, and not just Android or iOS. You can also build desktop and uh, web applications. So today's agenda is first we're gonna have an introduction to Flutter as a framework. Then we're going to talk about its benefits and some key features of Flutter. Then there's a important feature of Flutter, that is single code base. Then we're going to talk about the widgets and the widget tree, the type of widgets, and then the widget library. And there are two types of widgets on the base of its states. There is stateless widget and stateful widget. So we're going to talk about that also, and then we're going to see how easy is that we use in Flutter, and then we're going to see how to create a basic Flutter app. Next, first and the foremost question is, what is Flutter? So Flutter is basically an open source UI toolkit designed for building natively compiled applications for mobile, web, and desktop from a single code base. So Flutter, basically, it is an open source UI toolkit used to create applications for your mobile, web, and desktop platforms from a single code base. Like you have to write only one code that will work on any of its platform. It is developed by Google. It uses Dart programming language, which is optimized for high performance applications and fast development. Flutter stands out with its hot reload features. It is a very key feature of Flutter, that is hot reload, and it enables developer to see changes instantly without restarting the app. For example, if you want to see the which background suits the most, like red or yellow, so every time you don't have to restart the app again and again. Flutter provides the hot reload feature, and you can see instantly features. It also helps in fixing the bug, like you can instantly see the changes in the app without restarting the app again. It significantly speeds up your development process. So now some popular examples are here, like Google Assistant, then Google Pay, then SpaceX, Cryptograph, Dream 11, Alibaba. As you can see, Google Pay is an application on a very wide platform, and Flutter handle it. So you can have a just that how powerful Flutter is. Now we're going to see the benefits and key features of Flutter. So first, Flutter is a cross-platform development, as it can create application on any platform like iOS, Android, desktop application or web application. It uses Dart, which is very easy language to pick up. You will see in the coming slides. And then the single code base for multiple platforms. Then there is the hot reload feature that we have discussed before. It is used for instant code changes. Flutter provides rich set of customizable widgets. So widgets are basically the building blocks of the applications, and Flutter provides rich set of customizable widgets. Then there is a feature of fast rendering with Skia graphic engines. And then Flutter also provides wide range of built-in testing and debugging tools. Okay. So next we're gonna see this is the Android platform and this is the iOS platform. तो तुम देख सकते हो एक सिंगल हमने इसके लिए एक सिंगल कोड ही लिखा है फ्लटर में, और ये दोनों प्लेटफॉर्म पे बिल्कुल सिमिलर वर्क कर रही है। यहाँ ऐप बार सेम जगह पे आ रहा है, यहाँ टेक्स्ट सेम जगह पे आ रहा है, यहाँ पर बटन सेम बिल्कुल सिमिलर शो हो रहा है. So you don't have to write again different codes for different platform. Next, we're going to talk about Flutter framework architecture. So Flutter framework architecture mainly contains first the Dart language, which provides material widgets. Material widget contain the Android style widgets. जो भी तुम्हारे Android application में widgets दिखती है वो material widget के अंडर आती है. और then there is Cupertino widget. Cupertino widget और you can say widget library. इसके अंदर सारे iOS स्टाइल डिजाइन विजेट्स आते हैं. एंड देन देर आर सम विजेट्स दैट आर जेनरिक जो कॉमन टू ऑल जो तुम्हें दोनों में मिलेंगे जैसे लेआउट हो गया एटसेट्रा. So framework Dart it contains layer like material for Android style design, then Cupertino for iOS style design, and foundational libraries like widgets, rendering, animations, and gestures to build UI and handle user interactions. Okay. So next we're going to talk about engine. So Flutter uses Skia engine. Skia graphic engine is basically a 2D graphic engine used to show like the drawings, the text and the animations onto the screen. Basically Skia graphic engine सीधा तुम्हारा UI render करता है on या put करता है onto the screen without any intermediate platform. तो तुम्हारा animation smooth हो जाता है उससे और rendering part easily हो जाता है. Then there is Dart runtime, which executes the Dart code. And then there is platform channels, which facilitates communication between Dart and native code. So then there is three types of platform. First is iOS shell, then there is Android shell, and then there is embedded API. It provides like it is for the platform specific integration. So now we're gonna talk about the most important part in a Flutter application, that is widgets. Basically, your application is a widget only, like a combination of widget. So in Flutter, widgets are like Lego blocks or the building blocks that you use to build the user interface of your app. Each widget represents a small part of what you see on the screen, like a button, a piece of text, an image, or even layout. लाइक ये फ्लटर एप्लीकेशन है और इसमें हर एक चीज विजेट का ही पार्ट है, मतलब वो विजेट ही है. जो तुम पीछे वॉलपेपर भी देख रहे हो वो तुम्हारी या पेपर देख रहे हो, जो भी वॉलपेपर कह लो, बैकग्राउंड कह लो, वो तुम्हारा स्कैफोल्ड विजेट है. उसके अंदर तुम्हारा ऐप बार विजेट आता है, ये यूजर सेटिंग इज अ पार्ट ऑफ ऐप बार विजेट. देन दिस होल इज अ एक्ट एज अ कंटेनर विजेट. इसके अंदर हमने टेक्स्ट विजेट्स डाले हैं, सर्कल एवटार विजेट डाला है, फिर ये तुम्हारे आइकन विजेट हो गए और ये सारे टेक्स्ट विजेट्स हो गए जो तुम देख रहे हो. सो बेसिकली फ्लटर एप्लीकेशन इज द कॉम्बिनेशन ऑफ विजेट्स. ओके, these are the building blocks of UI. Widgets are immutable, and that means that you cannot change a widget, but if you want to change a widget then you have to create a new one. Okay, so basically Flutter like widget is immutable. And then everything is a widget. You have seen here in the application everything is a widget. Widgets are reusable. As you can see मैंने text widget कितनी बार यहाँ use करा हुआ है. Okay, so numerous time you can use a widget, and then you can see that widgets can be combined. Then we'll talk about widget tree. सो बेसिकली एक तुम्हारा जो तुम देखते हो कॉम्प्लेक्स यूआई देखते हो, एक एप्लीकेशन तुम्हें बड़ी कॉम्प्लेक्स लगती है देखने में, बट तुम उसको इन अ इजी वे लाइक इट can be converted into a widget tree. Any application in Flutter can be converted into a widget tree. So the widget tree represents the nested structure of widgets where every UI component in Flutter is a widget. Widgets can have one or multiple child widgets, creating complex layouts like column, row, or stack. The app starts with a root widget, Material or Cupertino app, and builds down to a leaf widget like text or icon. तो इसका मतलब है कि हम कोई भी जो फ्लटर का यूआई है वो हम विजेट ट्री में कन्वर्ट कर सकते हैं फॉर इजी अंडरस्टैंडिंग. तो यहाँ पे हमने एक एग्जांपल लिया है, इसमें हमने मटेरियल विजेट लिया है. मटेरियल विजेट के मतलब कितने भी चाइल्ड हो सकते हैं. तो इसमें हमने टाइटल एक चाइल्ड लिया और एक चाइल्ड होम लिया है। होम का चाइल्ड हमने स्कैफोल्ड लिया है, स्कैफोल्ड के अंदर हमने ऐप बार दिया है और बॉडी दिया है। ऐप बार के अंदर हमने टाइटल और उसमें टेक्स्ट विजेट डाला है, बॉडी के अंदर हमने सेंटर करके उसको टेक्स्ट दिया हुआ है। सो दिस इज बेसिकली अ विजेट ट्री फॉर एन एप्लीकेशन, और इसके बेसिस पे हम एक एप्लीकेशन बना सकते हैं, या वाइस वर्सा हम एक एप्लीकेशन लेकर उसका विजेट ट्री बना सकते हैं बेटर अंडरस्टैंडिंग के लिए। So now there are basic three categories of the widgets in Flutter. First is the generic widgets that are common to all. ये एक्चुअली ये जो widgets है generic widgets, ये तुम्हें material widget में भी मिल जाएगी, Cupertino widget में भी मिल जाएगी. So there are few examples. Basically, it provides you the layout and designing. So some examples are there like column and row. So column is used to arrange children vertically and row arranges the children horizontally. We'll see in the next slide how it does. And then there is flex widget, a flexible layout widget it provides. And then padding, padding is used to add space around the widgets. And then opacity, opacity is used to control the transparency of a widget. And then there is gesture detector. It detects gestures like tap, swipes, buttons को tap swipe करते हो या कोई भी text को करते हो तो gesture detect करता है वो. उसके बाद painter, that is used for your custom drawings. Then there is material widget. So material widget में as I've talked कि उसमें सारे Android style widgets होंगे. So हमारे पास थोड़े example यहाँ हमने दिए like raise widget. Raise widget is a button. Raise button is a button with a slight elevation. And then there is flat button. Flat button is without your elevation, similar like raise button but without elevation. Then there is inkwell. So inkwell भी एक बटन ही होता है but it like widget होता है जो जब टच करते हैं हम उसको तो एक रिपल इफेक्ट क्रिएट होता है. Then there is floating action button. It is a circular button typically used for primary actions. So then there is Cupertino widgets. It mimics the Apple's iOS designs. सारे iOS designing widgets इसमें style widgets इसमें होते हैं. For example, तुम्हारे Cupertino action sheet हो गए that displays an action sheet for user choices. Then Cupertino button हो गया a button style like iOS. Then there is Cupertino text field and iOS style text input field. Okay, just a second. So now we're gonna understand basic Flutter widgets. So let's start. First of all, there is column widget. So column widget basically aligns your children into like vertical layout. So you can see there is a column layout. इसके मतलब इसके नीचे नीचे आता रहेगा न्यू चिल्ड्रेंस. ओके. एंड यहाँ पे तुम कोड देख सकते हो. यहाँ पे जैसे मैंने कॉलम विजेट डिक्लेयर करा हुआ है, इसमें मैंने चिल्ड्रेन लिया एज लिस्ट ऑफ विजेट्स. चिल्ड्रेन मतलब जो हमने चाइल्ड नोड्स लिए थे विजेट ट्री में उसको तुम इधर कंसिडर कर सकते हो. एंड लिस्ट ऑफ विजेट्स हमने लिया एज चिल्ड्रेन. तो सबसे पहले हमने यू हैव पुश द बटन दिस मेनी टाइम्स, ये टेक्स्ट हमारा सबसे ऊपर चला जाएगा. फिर उसके बाद हमने एक और टेक्स्ट लिया है काउंटर, ये हमारा इधर चला जाएगा. ऐसे ही अलाइन होके हमने एक और दिया है जैसे दिस द फ्लटर सेशन, तो ये हमारा नेक्स्ट इधर नीचे चला जाएगा. तो ऐसे ऐसे जितने हम चाइल्ड डालते रहेंगे वो कॉलम लेआउट में ऐड होते रहेंगे, ऊपर से नीचे नीचे जाते रहेंगे वर्टिकली. देन देयर इज रो विजेट. रो विजेट हमारा हॉरिजॉन्टली चिल्ड्रन को अलाइन करता है. एज यू कैन सी द रो लेआउट लाइक हॉरिजॉन्टली अलाइन करता है चिल्ड्रन को एक के बाद एक. तो इधर तुम कोड देख सकते हो. कोड में हमने एक रो विजेट लिया है. रो विजेट में हमने चिल्ड्रन लिया लिस्ट ऑफ विजेट्स एंड सबसे पहले हमने टेक्स्ट ले लिया दिस इज अ रो, तो दिस इज अ रो इधर चला जाएगा. फिर हमने फ्लटर लोगो लिया, फ्लटर लोगो हमारा बीच में आ जाएगा नेक्स्ट में. उसके बाद हमने दिस इज फ्लटर सेशन, वो हमारा इस साइड अलाइन हो जाएगा. और अगर हम डालेंगे तो फिर वो और आगे आगे हॉरिजॉन्टली अलाइन होता रहेगा. So now we have container widget. Basically, container widget you can shape into, you can give any shape, you can cast into it into anything. Okay, कोई भी layout दे सकते हो, कोई भी shape दे सकते हो, कोई भी alignment दे सकते हो, anything you can give. So you can see here, this is an example of container widget. इसमें हम कोई भी styling provide कर सकते हैं. For example, हमने margin लिया है. Margin is the distance between your distance between the two widgets. And then there is padding. So padding is the distance between the border radius, the border and the text. And then we have given the background color. Then we have also provided the width and height. Then we have given the border. Then we have provided border radius. Then there can be icon or image in the container. There can be any text. There can be any shadow. If you want to give to the container, you can give. So you can style it anything you want. Okay. So here is an example of container widget. So you can see that we have provided, that we have styled it like we have given font size, color, font weight, decoration, text decoration, underline. Then we have given the colors to the text. You can style it to anything basically. Then the grid widget. So if you have, you must have seen any shopping app. तो शॉपिंग ऐप में जब तुम प्रोडक्ट्स देखते हो तो वो ग्रिड व्यू में ही अलाइन होते हैं. ऐसे ही अलाइन होते हैं प्रोडक्ट्स तुम्हारे. एंड दिस इज एन एग्जांपल ऑफ अ ग्रिड व्यू. सो it is used to create a grid. Okay, so you can see here, this is an example of grid view code. And इसमें हमने grid view declare करके cross axis count 2 दिया है. 2 का मतलब क्या है यहाँ, मतलब हमारे एक जो हमारा हॉरिजॉन्टल सेक्शन है उसमें हमारे दो प्रोडक्ट्स आ सकते हैं या दो पार्ट्स आ सकते हैं. तो that means about the cross axis count. ओके, एंड देन वी हैव गिवन चिल्ड्रन. तो तुम कितने भी चिल्ड्रन दे सकते हो, ये ऐसे ग्रिड व्यू में अलाइन होते रहेंगे. ओके, एंड यू कैन स्टाइल इट टू एनीथिंग आल्सो. Then the almighty scaffold comes. So scaffold is, you can basically think it of it as a paper. Okay, it basic app, हम पेपर ले रहे हैं और उस पर ऐप बना रहे हैं. तो पेपर हो गया या तुम्हारा वॉलपेपर हो गया या बैकग्राउंड हो गया, बेस हो गया, कुछ भी कह सकते हो इसको. और इसके ऊपर या इसके अंदर तुम्हारा ऐप बार, तुम्हारा बॉडी, कॉलम, फ्लोटिंग एक्शन बटन, बॉटम टैब नेविगेशन, सब इसके अंदर आता है. सो इसका कोड तुम देख सकते हो. हमने यहाँ स्कैफोल्ड लिया है, इसी का सेम का स्कैफोल्ड लिया है. उसके बाद हमने ऐप बार बनाया है इधर. फिर हमने बॉडी लिया है और इसमें हमने कॉलम विजेट यूज करा है. उसके बाद हमने टेक्स्ट डाला है. फिर हमने यहाँ फ्लोटिंग एक्शन बटन डाला है. सो एवरीथिंग यू कैन, everything comes under the scaffold. It is basically the wallpaper of your app. So now हमने इतना तो इन्फर कर ही लिया होगा कि कॉम्प्लेक्स यूआईज आर जस्ट अ कॉम्बिनेशन ऑफ बेसिक विजेट्स. जितना भी तुम कितने भी कॉम्प्लेक्स ऐप देखते हो, जैसे जी पे ही देखते हो, तुम्हें बहुत कॉम्प्लेक्स लगती है बनाने में, पर बेसिकली इट इज जस्ट अ कॉम्बिनेशन ऑफ बेसिक विजेट्स. यही तुम देख लो तुम्हें कितना कॉम्प्लेक्स लग रहा है. पर अगर तुम ध्यान से देखो इसको, इसमें कुछ नहीं है, बस रो विजेट है और कॉलम विजेट का कॉम्बिनेशन है. लाइक रो विजेट लिया हमने, उसके दो चिल्ड्रन हमने डाल दिए, एक में हमने इमेज डाली हुई है और एक में हमने कॉलम डाले हुए हैं. कॉलम के भी 4 चिल्ड्रन, हमने 4 कॉलम डाले हुए हैं और इसमें टेक्स्ट डाला हुआ. दैट्स इट. ये कॉम्प्लेक्स यूआई is basically the combination of basic widgets. So now we'll talk about the widget library. So Flutter के अगर तुम documentation में जाओगे, so you can see all these widget libraries that Flutter provides. So these are like material design. मटीरियल डिजाइन में तुम्हारा वही की एंड्रॉइड स्टाइल डिजाइनिंग विजेट्स आते हैं. उसके बाद क्यूपर्टिनो में तुम्हारा iOS स्टाइल विजेट्स आते हैं. देन in layout section, there is widgets like rows, column, grids to provide layouts, and there are other widgets to provide layouts. Then there is text to display and style text. Then there is asset library, asset images and icons to manage the assets and display images and show icons. Then there is an input library which takes user input in addition to input widgets in Material Design and Cupertino. Then there is animation and motion widget. Animation and motion widget bring animation to your app. And then interaction model, which helps in to respond to touch events and route users to different views. Then there is styling. So styling manages the theme of your app. Then there is painting and effects. These help to apply visual effects to the children without changing their layout, size, or position. Then there is async, which provides async patterns to your Flutter application. तो बेसिकली ये पूरी लाइब्रेरी तुम फ्लटर डॉक्यूमेंटेशन में देख सकते हो, पूरी सॉर्टेड है कि जहाँ तुम्हें लेआउट देखने हैं वहाँ लेआउट के विजेट्स है, तो फ्लटर ने तुम्हारे लिए इजी करा हुआ है. सो यू कैन चेक आउट to create beautiful UIs to your app. Then there is very important part of your Flutter, that is two types of widgets on the basis of its state. So first it stays stateless widget, a widget that never changes. Once it is created, it stays the same. इसकी कोई स्टेट नहीं होती, ये कभी चेंज नहीं होएगा तुम्हारा. फॉर एग्जाम्पल हम इसको इन चीजें के लिए यूज कर सकते हैं जिसमें हमें कोई अपडेट नहीं चाहिए. फॉर एग्जाम्पल टेक्स्ट हो गया, आइकन्स हो गया, स्टैटिक इमेजेस होगी जो चेंज नहीं होती विद टाइम. So everything that is static, that will remain the same, comes under the stateless widget. You can see there's an example, like we have declared or we have made a class my stateless widget, and we have extended or inherited the stateless widget with it. Then we can see कि हमने इसमें टेक्स्ट डाला है I never change. तो ये चेंज तो होने नहीं वाला, जब ऐप रन करेगी कुछ भी ये इसमें अपडेट होगा नहीं, तो इसलिए हमने इसको स्टेटलेस विजेट में डाला है. Then there is stateful widget, जिसकी state होती है जो update हो सकता है, that comes under stateless a stateful widget. So a widget that can change is a stateful widget. It has a state that you can update, like counter or a button that changes color. For example, तुम एक बटन बना रहे हो जो काउंट करता है कि कितनी बार वो क्लिक हुआ है, तो उसकी तो स्टेट चेंज हो रही है, बार बार वो +1 होता रहेगा, इंक्रीमेंट होता रहेगा. या तुम अगर बटन को क्लिक कर रहे हो उसका कलर चेंज हो रहा है, तो उसकी भी स्टेट चेंज हो रही है डायनामिकली. तो इसीलिए हम stateful widget यूज करते हैं. We can use it for things that need to update, like a button that toggles, a counter, a text field where users type. Okay, so you can see an example. हमने एक क्लास बनाई है my stateful widget, and इसको हमने extend करा stateful widget में. एंड देन हमने इधर काउंटर बटन बनाया है, और काउंटर बटन को हम यहाँ इंक्रीमेंट कर रहे हैं. काउंटर बटन बार बार अपडेट हो रहा है. ये हम स्टेटफुल विजेट में हम फंक्शन यूज करते हैं सेट स्टेट. तो सेट स्टेट ही हम तभी यूज करते हैं जब हमारी स्टेट चेंज हो रही हो. तो हमने यहाँ सेट स्टेट फंक्शन यूज करा. ये हमारा सेट स्टेट स्टेटलेस विजेट में तुम्हें नहीं मिलेगा. ओके, मिलेगा तो एरर है. ठीक है, तो हमने जैसे यहाँ बटन बनाया है काउंटर का, तो हम जब भी इसको प्रेस करेंगे, ऑन प्रेस फंक्शन क्या बताता है कि जब वो प्रेस होगा तो वो क्या एक्ट करेगा या क्या एक्शन लेगा. तो ऑन प्रेस फंक्शन में सेट स्टेट फंक्शन हम कॉल करेंगे, क्योंकि हमें स्टेट चेंज करनी है, और हम काउंटर बटन को +1 कर देंगे, तो वो अपडेट हो जाएगा. तो बार बार जब भी हमारा बटन क्लिक हो रहा होगा, काउंटर 0 से 1 चला जाएगा, फिर 2 चला जाएगा, और वो उसकी वैल्यू हम प्रिंट करते रहेंगे बार बार. So that is an example of stateful widget. So now there is a small difference between the stateless widget and stateful widget.
एक
So first,
सेकंड, एक सेकंड यार
yes,
आना, ठीक है. तो अभी तक
sure.
जितना यार ने बताया सबको समझ में आ गया. एंड अगर कुछ नहीं आया, किसी को कुछ डाउट्स हैं तो प्लीज पूछ लो भी. एंड बीच में भी पूछ सकते हो, ऐसा नहीं है. बट हाँ, अगर किसी को डाउट्स है तो अभी पूछ लो, वरना याना विल कंटिन्यू. ओके, आई गेस सबको सब समझ में आ गया, तो दैट्स गुड थिंग. ठीक है याना.
पक्का समझ आ रहा है?
ठीक है भाई याना, यू मे कंटिन्यू. ओके, श्रेयांश का क्वेश्चन.
Yes.
मेरा क्वेश्चन है कि जैसे ये तो सिर्फ ऐप का एक तरीके से वो है ना कि इंटरफेस और ऐप बन जाएगा, बट वो बैक एंड में कनेक्ट वगैरह किससे करेंगे, जैसे सर्वर्स वगैरह से, जैसे गूगल पे भी है, उसमें जो बैंक अकाउंट्स जो कनेक्टेड रहते हैं वो कैसे होता है?
हम बहुत कुछ यूज करते हैं उसमें। सबसे पहले हम डाटाबेस भी यूज करते हैं, उसके बाद बैकएंड में तो बहुत कुछ होता है। अभी तो हम फ्रंट एंड की बात कर रहे हैं, जो हमारा यूआई एप्लीकेशन कैसे बनाना है।
That
नहीं तो उसमें भी मेरे को ये पूछना है कि, सॉरी टू इंटरप्ट, मैं ये पूछ रहा था कि उसमें
यस।
ये फ्लटर ही यूज होता है ना?
Let me explain. What you are asking is कि how you can connect the backend, right? So in Flutter, we have basically two paths, है ना? Two paths में categorize कर सकता हूँ. While one I am building the UI, and the other is I am handling the state. State is the data, है ना? कुछ भी हो सकता है. Anything related to bank data हो सकता है. कोई पेमेंट डेटा हो सकता है. कोई वॉलपेपर ऐप है तो उसके लिए वॉलपेपर हो सकता है. दैट इज स्टेट, राइट? सो उसे मैनेज करने के लिए यू जनरली यूज अ प्रोवाइडर, यू यूज अ स्टेट मैनेजमेंट अप्रोच, जो कि यहाँ पे फ्लटर में दो तीन ही है, काफी पॉपुलर है. मैं नेम कर देता हूँ if you want to go check them out. One is Riverpod. The most common one is Provider, which is used by every other library, and then there is Block, which is used mostly in production. So using state management, that is not what we are going to cover because it is something which is kind of an intermediate level. But yeah, if you want to connect your backend, then state management. And if you want to connect with some APIs, there are packages like HTTP and DO for connecting with REST APIs.
थैंक यू। और मैं ये पूछा था, जैसे वेब डेवलपमेंट करते हैं ना, उसमें सी प्लस प्लस यूज होता है इंटरफेस बनाने के लिए, है ना? और जो ये होता है अपना जावा स्क्रिप्ट, उससे बैकएंड बनता है ना? तो ये जैसे हम फ्लटर यूज करेंगे तो इसमें बैकएंड का क्या, किस लैंग्वेज वगैरह इसी से करना है किसी और से, मेरा वो क्वेश्चन है।
हाँ हाँ, दैट पर्टिकुलर थिंग अभी आ रही है. डार्ट लैंग्वेज यूज करती है फ्लटर फॉर बिल्डिंग द यूआई, फॉर बिल्ड राइटिंग एवरीथिंग. सारा कोड डार्ट में होता है. वो याना विल कवर ना.
ओके ओके, थैंक यू।
या नो वरीज. याना म्यूट है.
यस यस। एनी अदर डाउट गाइस?
Okay, I think we don't have
आई
any
थिंक
doubts.
या शुड आई कंटिन्यू नाउ?
Yeah, that's all.
Okay. So now we're going to talk about difference between stateless widget and stateful widget. वैसे हमने उतना देख के ही हमें समझ आ गया कि कि stateless widget में हमारी state जो है वो does not changes over time, and stateful widget में हमारी state does changes over time. देन इसमें कोई इंटरनल स्टेट नहीं होती। स्टेटफुल विजेट में हमारे पास इंटरनल स्टेट होती है। उसके बाद स्टेटलेस विजेट में अगर हमें इसको रीबिल्ड करना है तो वो रीबिल्ड तभी होगा जब पेरेंट चेंज होगा। और उसके बाद स्टेटफुल विजेट में हम स्टेटफुल विजेट कैन रीबिल्ड इटसेल्फ। उसके बाद there are few examples that we have already talked about, that is text, icon, container, and in stateful widget there is checkbox, text field, and slider. Just a minute. Yeah, so now we're gonna talk about Dart. As you can see that Dart is easy peasy lemon squeezy. It is very easy language. And अगर तुम्हें बेसिक प्रोग्रामिंग लैंग्वेज कोई भी आती है, सी, सी प्लस प्लस और जावा, पाइथन, तो तुम बहुत इसको इजीली ग्रैप कर सकते हो। लाइक जावा में या सी में हम मेन फंक्शन बनाते हैं। मेन इज बेसिकली द एंटरिंग पॉइंट ऑफ योर प्रोग्रामिंग कोड, सो प्रोग्राम कोड। सो इधर भी हम मेन फंक्शन बनाते हैं। मेन फंक्शन को हम करली ब्रैकेट से ही खोलते हैं, और उसके बाद हम अगर हमें कोई वेरिएबल डिक्लेयर करना है तो हम सबसे पहले डेटा टाइप लिखते हैं, फिर वेरिएबल का नेम लिखते हैं, फिर हम इक्वल टू लिखते हैं, और उसके अंदर जो हमें वैल्यू डालनी है वो लिखते हैं, और उसके बाद कॉलन से एंड कर देते हैं। सिमिलर लाइक जावा और एनी अदर लैंग्वेज, वेरी सिमिलर। यहाँ पे हमने एंड डिक्लेयर करा है, यहाँ पे हमने स्ट्रिंग डाला है, इनिशियलाइज करा है। उसके बाद हमने प्रिंट स्टेटमेंट देखेंगे। प्रिंट इज बेसिकली लाइक ditto like Python code. You just have to use the print statement inside जो भी print करना है, and then end with the semicolon. No system dot out dot println, no cout or anything, just print. देन अगर तुम्हें प्रोग्रामिंग लैंग्वेज अच्छे से नहीं आती बट अगर तुम्हें HTML या CSS आती है तो भी तुम देख सकते हो कितने सिमिलर कोड है दोनों। लाइक इधर भी हम क्लासेस डिव यूज करके क्लासेस बनाते हैं, इधर भी हम क्लासेस बनाते हैं और ऊप्स यूज करते हैं इसमें हम। बाकी हम स्टाइलिंग जैसे देते हैं, बैकग्राउंड कलर, विड्थ, हाइट, फॉन्ट, इधर भी हम यहाँ विड्थ, हाइट, कलर, फॉन्ट की स्टाइलिंग हम फ्लटर में डार्ट कोड यूज करके देते हैं। सो बेसिकली यू कैन अंडरस्टैंड डार्ट कोड वेरी इजीली। It is very easy to pick up. Okay, so now it's time for some code and Mukul bhaiya will take over.
Okay, let me share my screen. Okay, so I think my screen should be visible right now. है ना? एक confirmation दे दो मुझे.
Yes, भैया.
It's visible.
Yes.
Yes, yes.
Okay, so if I can just go to the PPT, like what we have seen right now, that we have discussed a lot of things in Flutter, and like we have discussed how it utilizes a single code base. Widgets क्या होते हैं? Basic widgets हमने देखे, row, column, grid, scaffold, है ना? And we also saw कि stateless and stateful क्या होता है. If you understood 30% of it, that's fine. जो rest 70% है वो मैं cover कर दूंगा by giving an actual Flutter project example, है ना? एंड वी विल सी कि जो बेसिक हमारे हॉट रीलोडिंग, हॉट रीस्टार्टिंग एंड जो विजेट्स होते हैं वो एक्चुअल में कैसे काम करते हैं कोड में. सो लेट्स सी एन एग्जांपल. हियर आई हैव दिस very basic project, and the project name is sample app, and it's just a simple app with an app bar, and we have an image over here. Then we have some text and counter which I can increment using this button. Okay. So when we enter any Flutter project, the first thing we notice is the file structure. Let's forget about the code right now. So the first thing we notice is the file structure, right? So let's understand this. First of all, if you will notice that we have some folders like Android, Linux, macOS, Web, Windows. So these are system specific folders. Like let's say if you want to build for Android, you will need to make some changes. Like a very good example will be permission. Let's say here my app wants to require some location permission. It requires internet, Bluetooth permission. So for that, I will have to go here and add it. Otherwise, it contains some configuration files which are very much subjected to Android. Similarly, we have for iOS as well. We have for Mac. Flutter can build for
ABD
Linux.
support.
Sorry. Uh, सही है ना? ठीक है. Yeah. So, if you want to build for macOS, Linux, Windows, that is basically you are going to go for desktop apps. You can create Linux apps, macOS apps, you can create Windows apps, and you have a web folder as well, which means you can also create a website with Flutter. And that is basically from a single code base, which is in the lib folder, which I will go on later. Then after here, we will be like when you are creating for mobile app, you will be interacting with basically two folders, which is the Android folder and the iOS folder. And these were the two things which you will be interacting with. Now, apart from that, we have some other files as well. The most important one is pubspec file. So this file basically contains, first of all, the SDK constraint, the environment constraint. What does this mean? This means that this is basically the Dart version, which is the latest version, 3.5.4, and it specifies that, okay, this project, any system it can run on, it should have Dart up to this version or below this. Then only we can execute this. Otherwise, this project won't be able to run. And after that, you can see we have two parts, basically dependencies and dev dependencies. So those of you who are coming from web development background or have used npm before, we have a package.json file, right? In that also we have two of this thing, dependency of dev dependencies. So the basic difference is that dependencies are something which are going to be used when the user uses the app. It could contain some state management packages, some font packages, some UI packages, HTTP package for calling APIs, right? And in the dev dependencies, you will have packages which are only going to be used while in development. This could be linting, like I have used here. Linting basically make sure you are following the good coding practices while developing your Flutter apps. Apart from that, you can have build runner to generate building files. You can have a package for creating the app icon, which and these are the things which I only need while development. Why would I put these packages in this dependencies and increase my app size, right? So it's very logical to put them in dev dependencies so that they are not included in my final release. Then this bottom part, which is the assets part, here you basically declare all your assets, whatever you want to use. You can have some images, icons, or you can have some fonts. For fonts, in this particular app, we will be using Google Fonts. That is a better approach than putting all your fonts one after another. And in the asset, we are using a single file here. In the assets folder, we have a single file, which is the bird image, which you are seeing over here. And yeah, that's all you can just declare your images, fonts, and icons. Apart from that, there are some other files as well, which are not very necessary here. You have an analysis option which you where you can define linting rules if you want to, let's say, unused imports को अगर तुमको you want कि the developer should raise a warning or the app should not compile when there are unused imports in the program. You can enforce that. Generally हम इसको इससे ज़्यादा पंगे नहीं लेते हैं. We keep it like it is, है ना? And then there is a pubspec.log file, which if I just delete right now, we can regenerate it by running pubget. And it's just a file which tells the version of every dependency which I am using right now. So as you can see, clock is not in my pubspec. I have not declared any dependency collection. These are basically dependencies which are used by these packages, right? They also have some dependencies. So it basically tells Flutter that, okay, you have to get this particular version from this repo, and that is what pubspec tells. Then we have a readme file and gitignore file, which are pretty basic. And then now the most important part, which is the lib folder. So in the lib folder, that is the place where you are going to keep all your code. Here we have widgets. You can have multiple folders as well. Depends upon what architecture you are following. We can have pages. If you want a simple architecture, you can have widgets, pages, utils. Or if you are following some clean architecture approach, you will have data, domain, presentation. So right now I have a very simple project structure where I have a main.dart file, and then I have in the widgets folder, I have a decorated text component. So I have only two files. And in the main file, this is like the entry point for your program. And we are going to spend quite some time here and see what are all the things, all the lines. We will go line by line and understand what the code is actually doing and how it is rendering this particular UI, which you can see on the right hand side. So for the first part, we can see there is a main function, right? So this acts like an entry point. Every, like Jana discussed, this is the entry point. Every Flutter project will only have one main function, which will contain run app, and it basically runs my app, which is over here, which is a class, a stateless widget. And this is there is always going to be only one project in the entire app. And then we have my app, which basically creates a material app. Okay, so like we have covered before, we have material app, we have Cupertino app. So right now you can see I am on an Android phone, right? So I cannot build for iOS, and that's why I'm using a material app. But let's say I want to get the Cupertino specific or the iOS specific widgets. I can just use this. Right now I am importing the material. I can just say Cupertino, right? And right now you can see it's saying, hey, there are some problems with your code. Material app is not defined, theme data is not defined, and right here as well we have some problems. So why is that? So if you see, if you remember the PPT where we have shown that there are two mobile apps, right? One has the same app running on iOS and the same app running on Android. The components are same, but how they look feel is different. This is how iOS was created, right? They basically have some different look or a different style to their widgets as compared to Android, right? Android, the latest Android is Material 3. As you can see, the look is a little bit different. So this is the latest Material 3. And for Cupertino, you can use this Cupertino package. And here I just have to change this to Cupertino app. Similarly, theme data will be changed to Cupertino theme data, I guess. Yeah. And see, it takes some different set of arguments. We can comment that. Then it takes a different scaffold, basically Cupertino page scaffold. I don't develop for iOS because I don't have a Mac. So yeah, Cupertino page scaffold is basically for building iOS for building putting your widgets like the background on iOS. So as you can see, we have some platform specific widgets which Flutter provides to build for both Android and iOS, right? So I'm just gonna undo these changes. We are going to build for Android. Yeah. So now let's move on to the stateless and stateful part, which is basically which relates to state. Yeah, this much we have covered, right? Material app, it basically creates home, which is my home page, which is a stateful widget, right? So what is a stateful widget? So if you see in this widget, and the first thing which you will notice in stateless and stateful is that it is broken into two parts, right? A stateless widget is a simple widget which basically has a constructor, my app, constructor, and a build function. Build function is something which I will tell later on, but for right now, you can say it basically just gets called every time I do a hot reload, like this, right? The UI gets rendered again. So build is run, right? And if you notice one thing between stateless and stateful widget is that stateful is broken into two parts. This is the state, this is the state, and this is basically the create state function, right? And here we don't have such distinction. So why is that, and how is it helping to keep the state when we do a hot reload? Here you can see we have a counter variable, and it gets updated whenever I just click on this button, right? So if you see over here in the scaffold, we have a floating action button, and which basically calls an on pressed, and it is an increment counter function which basically calls set state. Now what is set state? So set state is like a very useful function which you will be using a lot of times when you have to change data, when you have to refresh the screen dynamically. When a user presses a button, maybe he opens a drawer, maybe he uses some other action, right? He presses another button. So that is when set state is called, and you want to update the UI. So what this does is it basically calls counter plus plus, which is basically incrementing the value of counter. And all of this is possible because I'm in a stateful widget. If I would to change this in a stateless widget, set state calling and updating my counter will not be possible because that is how Flutter declares it, right? Flutter basically states that, okay, if you have some state, if you want to update it, please put this in a stateful widget. And if you don't want that your data is not changing, you can use a stateless widget. And stateless widget will be basically इसमें अगर मेरे को डेटा चेंज करना है तो क्या करना पड़ेगा, रीस्टार्ट करना पड़ेगा. This basically restart basically calls from this main function से कॉल होगा एकदम स्टार्टिंग से. Whereas hot reload करूंगा, so it will just call the build function of this particular widget, this one. And if I do a hot restart, it will basically calls run app again. Now, as you can see, it took quite a lot of time, right? Because that is how resource intensive hot restart is. And just think about it. If for every small change I make, I have to do a hot restart, how much time will it consume, right? See, the UI अभी बना UI बहुत देर बाद जाके. And if I do a hot reload, it will be much quicker, right? See, the UI got updated, but it was much quicker. And that is what the different basic difference between a stateless and a stateful widget is. So you have to choose accordingly what you want to use. Okay. Now, in this, if I have to go and see how the layout is made, first of all, we have the scaffold, which is basically like we discussed, a paper. right? A background जिसके ऊपर सारी चीजें placed है. We have the app bar, we have these images, we have this text, we have this button. Everything is placed on that particular paper. That is the scaffold. In that we have an app bar, which is basically this, a title containing app bar, a simple example. And then we have a body which contains a column. जैसा कि हमने डिस्कस करा था पहले कि कॉलम क्या होता है, एक वर्टिकल अलाइनमेंट होता है ना. अगर मेरे को यहाँ पे कॉलम को आइडेंटिफाई करना है कि भाई कॉलम कहाँ से स्टार्ट हो रहा है, सो अगर तुम यहाँ पे नोटिस करोगे ऐप बार के जस्ट बिलो नीचे से स्ट्रेच होके ये नेविगेशन ड्रॉर के ऊपर तक, दिस इज वेयर द कॉलम इज प्रेजेंट. दिस इज द basically what the space column is consuming. And it contains children, which is basically a list of widgets, right? This is what Flutter has defined. Like it should be a list of widgets, right? I cannot give anything else apart from a widget. So here we have an image where we have a text, which is basically you have push this button, and then we have this counter, which is string interpolated. And this is and let's say if I want to change the alignment, I don't want this in the center, I want this in the start. We can do that very easily by changing the main axis alignment. Let's say I go for start, so you start now, right? If I want, let's say end, it will come into end. And let's say I want something else. Let's say I want evenly spaced, so I can go for evenly spaced as well. See, so as you can see, column is a very good widget if you want to arrange your widgets in a vertical fashion, right? And then we have okay, so after that we said that you can create usable widgets, reusable widgets in Flutter. What does that mean? What does that mean? So let's say I have this widget which I have created, my decorated text here. If I want to use it, I have to import it. So let's import it. This, as you can see, we have imported that particular widget from the widgets folder, and this is my widget. I have created it, and if I would have to go here, you can see it's a stateless widget, which has a build function, which is returning a container. Container has some decoration, which is basically the border. Okay, let's first render it so you can see better. Okay, let's do a hot restart. Compiler is not generating any warning, so we should be good to go. Yeah. So this is the decorated text which I'm talking about. So as you can see, we have decoration, which is basically the border, the red border, and then we have the text, which basically says text, which we are taking as in the constructor. I am passing it from the main dot dart. And then in the text, I am using Google Fonts to basically style it. This is the font size, color, all of this you can configure. So now, इसका फायदा क्या हुआ? Why did I put the decorated text in the widgets? Now I can import it anywhere and use this particular widget anywhere, right? So the reusability factor है वो बढ़ गया इसका, right? And Flutter also enforces कि if you have some complex widget like this, it will be better to create it in a separate file, a separate component in a stateless widget, or this could be stateful if I had some state, but यहाँ पे मेरे पास कोई state नहीं है, I just want some text to be displayed, right? So Flutter enforces कि you create components so that you can reuse them later, right? Like I'm using right now. So do we have more time? Okay. So last thing will be the row, which is basically for uh, horizontal alignment of things. Let's see. I have an example over here. Okay. Let's just comment this. As you can see, this is the row where everything has been arranged horizontally, right? We have text, we have logo, we have that decorated text. And as you can see, if you understand this, this is a column. This entire thing is a column. Inside of this, we have a row. And now inside of that, we can also have a column. And similarly, we can do nesting. We can have a grid view in that. That is how all the UIs which you see in any app how created, right? They are just a basic combination of these widgets, row, column, container, text. That is how they are arranged. And while a general tip I will give is while whenever you see a UI, try to build the Flutter widget tree in your mind, like how it will look, right? पहले there will be a column आएगा उसमें we will have vertical arrangement then उसके अंदर we have this rating symbol over here so that will require a row. In that way your logical mind for building UIs will develop and it will really help you. Okay, so I think I have covered everything related to Flutter in this project, and um, I would also like to refer you to some resources which you can follow if you want to learn Flutter in depth. And the best place to start is going to be the docs, right? The Flutter docs. If you go to docs.flutter.dev, there you will get everything if from basic layouts to animations, navigations to deployment, right? So I would highly recommend if you want to learn Flutter, start from the docs, then go on to different. You can go on to different resources. You can refer to some Udemy, YouTube, whatever you want. And right now I also use Flutter in production, but I always consider documentation first because it is the right place to start and it basically helps you to create a map that okay how I'm going to proceed right now, right? So and testing is also an important phase if you want to learn testing, widget testing, unit testing, integration testing. All of these is covered over here, which is very important if you are doing stuff in production. And ending, if you want to get this project, I have added it onto my GitHub, right? I will share the link. Yeah. So if you want to run this locally, you can run and you can understand how it is working. And I guess that pretty much summarizes everything I and Yana have covered. So if you have any doubts, feel free to ask. याना एक बार वो डाउट्स वाला लगा देना that particular
Yes,
slide.
just a second.
हाँ. So guys, if you have any doubts, please feel free to ask in the chat box or directly. We are happy to answer.
Guys, you can ask anything related to app development, Flutter, and cross-platform. Anything you guys want to ask because we have got two really great developers out for this session. तो आपको कुछ भी पूछना है आप freely पूछ सकते हो.
Yeah, in
Yes,
general, for app development,
yes,
you can.
anything.
I don't know, is it a silly question? But
Hmm.
क्या बोलते हैं? If we want to develop app for iOS, तो हमें Mac की जरूरत पड़ेगी क्या?
हाँ, that is a foundation put by Apple. That if you want to build for iOS, आपको एक Mac चाहिए होगा. Mac से आप Android भी build कर सकते हो, iOS भी build कर सकते हो, but Windows से you can only build for Android.
Okay.
हाँ,
As such मेरा कोई और डाउट नहीं है. आप लोगों ने अच्छे से समझा दिया बस बेसिक.
so
So
great. Thank you so much.
thank you.
Thank you.
Can I leave now?
Yeah, if you have no doubts, you can leave.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
So guys, any doubt from हमारे college? Bram, uh, है meet?
हाँ हाँ ठीक है. ओके गाइस, इफ अगर किसी को कोई डाउट्स नहीं है हम अभी भी बोलेंगे. एंड अगर किसी को बाय चांस सेशन मिस हो गया तो हम यूट्यूब पे अपलोड भी कर रहे
Mukul, there's a
होंगे.
doubt in the chat box.
हाँ ओके
हाँ,
ओके.
मैं कर दूंगा तो बोलते रहे Bram.
हाँ तो बस यही है. अगर थैंक यू एवरीवन फॉर जॉइनिंग इन कमिंग इन टुडे. व्हाट्सएप लिंक हमने यूजुअल यहाँ पे शेयर कर दिया है. एक बार मुकुल वापस भेज दे व्हाट्सएप लिंक. एंड ऊपर ये चैट में। एंड थैंक यू गाइस, थैंक यू एवरीवन फॉर जॉइनिंग एंड स्टे ट्यून्ड, हमारे और भी ऐसे सेशंस होते वगैरह रहते हैं। एंड या थैंक यू एवरीवन फॉर कमिंग इन टुडे, हैव अ गुड नाइट। एंड मैं
थैंक यू।
रिक्वेस्ट करूंगा जितने भी जीडीजी मेंबर्स हैं, स्पेसिफिकली टीम लीड्स, वो रुक जाए।
हाँ प्लीज लीड्स
हाँ
रुक जाए।
एंड बाकी थैंक यू फॉर कमिंग इन गाइस, आप लोग लीव कर सकते हो अगर आपको कोई डाउट्स नहीं है।